Hey there, I'd like you to meet my friend, Tagore. That's him right there. He's about to make a nuisance of himself by giving a bear hug to an unsuspecting Netrunner player. Well, one thing you should know about Tagore is that he loves prepaid Kate. For the benefit of those who weren't with us pre-rotation, prepaid Kate was based on the card prepaid voice pad. This pre-rotation card made playing events more profitable. As such, it gave rise to a powerful deck called Prepaid Kate, wherein most of its cards were events that fueled the deck. You had economy events, multi-access events, and most importantly, draw events, which would draw into the rest of your events so that you can chain them for lots of efficiency, while still maintaining aggression against the core. It was so powerful that prepaid voice pair actually made it on the initial most wanted list due to constraining the event design space, making it very difficult to print events that had play costs on them. So that's some history for you. Unfortunately, post-rotation, we can't really play prepaid Kate, obviously because both prepaid voice pad and Kate have since rotated. But more than that, there's a lot more that prepaid Kate lost post-rotation. Two of the very key cards that you used to see in prepaid Kate are gone, and these are very powerful events that used to be the backbone of prepaid engines. Quality Time allow you to draw 5 cards in a click. Lucky Find in the span of a single card gives you a 6 credit profit, more if you have prepaid voice pad up. So these are very powerful cards that event based decks have lost, and this is a huge problem. Nowadays, this is the reason why most people default to resource-based economy or simply magnum opus, because event-based economy is untenable with all these big cards out of the way. I'm here to challenge that and bring back some prepaid Kate reminiscence and hopefully make people like to go a bit more happy. Today we are gonna look at COMET Smoke, the new version of prepaid Kate. Now, what does COMET do? COMET is a console, just like prepaid voice pad is a hardware, but this one's a console. It takes up your console slot, but it gives you just as much, if not more efficiency than prepaid voice pad itself. So the key thing is that instead of returning you more credits for every event you play, it returns you clicks, a click per turn maximum, and that means that you can attain Haley-like efficiency without actually playing Haley. You can jam up to 5 clicks in a turn with COMET up. And this is the basis of our deck. The choice of Smoke as the identity is pretty clear. Having seen what the event-based economy engine has lost, we have to play an identity that requires very little economy to get going and very little economy to sustain. And Smoke is exactly that. With the Stealth Suite being so efficient, you don't have to make that much money with your prepaid event suite, or COMET event suite, I should say. So the event suite will be used for drawing through your deck more so than actually making you money. So because you want to draw through your deck, you want to have the lean deck size, so that helps as well. And another point I didn't write down here is that Smoke has the full 15 influence and can actually spend most of it, because Smoke doesn't really need to import many things outside of faction, and that's important when you look at the deck list. Most of the events that we are using, just like the old prepaid suite, cost influence. We are talking about the neutrals here, Deuce's Wild and Build Script. These will add up in influence very quickly. Therefore, we do want to have as much spare influence as possible, and with the Smoke Breaker suite, which is mostly in faction, we are okay with leaving spare influence for this event suite. So hence I think COMET in Smoke is the most logical place to play this. Our restricted card of choice is always Levy. For those of you not familiar with the prepaid suite, in event engine decks, Levy is non-negotiable. The whole point of event engine suite is to draw through your deck very quickly, and Levy allows you to draw through your deck multiple times, allowing you to gain more money as you go along and have access to those cards that are now in the bin. So this is the premise of an event-based deck, and this is why you are willing to spend your restricted slot on Levy. Now, of course, there's a question between build script and process automation. I went with the former simply because I want the card draw more than the money. As mentioned, Smoke doesn't need a lot of money. Once you get a net merker going with your cloaks, you are more or less set for economy. In that case, what you want is to actually draw through your deck quickly so you can find the key digging cards, your Maker's Eyes, your Info Sifting, and so on. Hence, the build script, which gives you 2 cards, rather than the process automation, which gives you 2 credits. Another important thing to note is that unlike most other decks, you actually want all 3 copies of your console, because COMET is the heart of this deck. Without it, your event engine will feel very sluggish because you're just not making that much every click. Deuce's Wild and Build Script are very marginal cards that only give you 2 cards and a credit per click, which is not that good considering that you're spending 1 card to get those benefits. Hence the COMETs. You want those quickly, and you want to get as many COMET triggers as possible given in any given game. So let's strap up in our rockets, launch off from Manchester, ride the COMET through the blue skies on a trajectory towards the sun.
Captain, we have a case of space potatoes.
Space what?
There are potatoes in space, and they are headed our way.
Well then what are you waiting for? Go power up the Levy Research Lab. We didn't invest all our money in that for nothing. In our race to space, we normally mulligan for the all-important COMET, but my opening hand was just too good to give up. Piecing our time into Beth, that is amazing. Feed your opponent that glistening cash and take advantage of it with Beth draw. That's really good. Now my opponent responds with a turn 2 1 power on a Hokusai grid. Well, they didn't show me the Hokusai grid, but I had a pretty good hunch that it was. So gotta keep that in mind while making my decisions for this turn. Now thankfully, I managed to draw into my COMET last turn. So that's definitely going down. The question is, which events am I going to play from my hand? So the first event to play is definitely either Diesel or Build Script. Both are good, and really there's very little difference in playing both. One will draw you more cards than the other, however, so it really depends on whether I'm going to challenge the Hokusai grid. After some thought, I decided I'm going to run the Hokusai grid, which means I'll be taking damage, which means that I want to draw more cards to pad my hand. So I Diesel up and play the Sure Gamble. Gotta get the Sure Gamble out of the way before it either gets trashed to net damage or before I go too poor to be able to afford the 5 play costs. This deck can really struggle with money if you dip below the 5 credit mark, being unable to play for Sure Gambles, that being your strongest economy card in the deck, so you need to keep that in mind throughout the entire game. Notice I also drop an SMC here. It allows me to threaten Clot against shipment from Tenin and allows me to siege central servers as and when necessary. Now my opponent spends the last turn mandatory draw followed by 3 clicks to draw. They are frantically drawing for combo pieces. Coincidentally, my Beth draw finds me Info Sifting. This is too good to be true. I'm going to take the offer. I'm going to Info Sift my opponent's hand and attempt to fetch any agendas they just drew. So you notice I spend my first 2 clicks drawing up so that now I have 4 cards in hand. This will allow me to steal Obo Carters, or at least have the option to steal Obo Carters. I take a net damage from Kakugo, losing Deuce's Wild from my hand and off the top of my deck, so that's quite annoying. Deuce's Wild being a very flexible card. But I do get the Info Sifting off successfully using my SMC for the paperclip. I'm going to access a pile of 2 or a pile of 3 here. I decide to go for the pile of 3 and we'll see what I access in a bit. Yeah, we are going to see IPO, Archive Memories, Cortex Lock. Guess I took the wrong pile, damn it. Well, not much we can do about that. Unfortunately, that was an unsuccessful info sifting, but at least now I have more information about what my opponent has in their hand. Now they get another 2 cards out here. I wonder what they are. Probably a 1 power? I don't know. What I do know is that I'm a bit too poor to contest the Hokusai. I know that one of those cards is a Hokusai because they just use Archive Memories for it, so I decided not to run it. I'd rather run it next turn when I can actually, afford the clicks to do so. And who knows, that might be just a trap. It could be a snare, it could be a psychic field. You don't really want to hit those when you have so many valuable programs and stuff in your hand. So I'm just going to ignore it and drop myself a cloak instead. Poor decision making here. My opponent finds a House of Knives. This is not the agenda you want to see even with 2 levies in your deck. House of Knives makes it really annoying because it's very hard to steal Obo Carters and survive thereafter. There's a lot of net damage you have to deal with. So, to prevent further House of Knives being scored, I have to get the Sacrificial Construct and the Clot down to prevent Tendon Fast Advance. So at least that's off the table. And we'll see how we can deal with things from here. Most notably, I have Double Maker's Eye in my hand. So I definitely will be looking to make some R&D runs sooner or later, if I find the correct breakers for it. Meanwhile, my opponent threatens with another install in the remote and even has ice on top of that. So that really looks like an agenda, but if it's a snare, that could easily be my undoing. So I need to be really careful with how I approach this. I know I don't have an SMC, so it looks like I can't really contest this server one way or another. There are lots of nasty stuff I could hit here. A Cortex Lock will deal 2 net damage. It looks very, very likely to be a Cortex Lock actually. So I'm going maybe not. I could drop the SMC and fetch a dagger, but I really don't have the money to do that. I'll be pretty broke, which means I can't contest the Hokusai at all. And if that's a snare, well, bad luck. So here, first click draw into build script. This is where build script really shines because I can fire build script into Dirty Laundry. The Dirty Laundry being drawn off the back of build script. This is why I much prefer build script to process automation, which only draws 1 card. Build script gives you a much higher chance of drawing to another event, which you can chain into with COMET. Now the question is, where do I target my run? Obviously Archives. There are no Breach Domes in there yet, so Archives is good to go. After running Archives, I dropped the Netmarker. A bit of, suboptimal play there because I did not get the Netmarker down while I was doing the Dirty Laundry run. That would have allowed me to charge the Netmarker up. Bad news, my opponent found themselves the second House of Knives. Ugh. Looks like I missed a whole bunch of them with the info sifting. This is terrible. This is terrible. This is not where I want to be. Now, I draw into a Refractor here, and this is the most awkward situation I can be in. I could, because of memory issues, COMET only gives 1 memory. I'm full on memory right now, so I can't install the Refractor without first sacking the SMC for the dagger in my deck. But I decided, why not? I'll install the dagger as I draw it. That'll save me on the 2 SMC credits, which is a huge deal given how poor I am right now. So I just overwrote the SMC, dropped the Refractor, and I was very tempted to click the Maker's Eye here. I ended up doing it. This is probably not a good idea, but I took the risk and it paid off. It was an Ike. So notice a very tactical decision here. I use Netmarker not to charge a credit on Netmarker, but to draw a card. This puts me on 2 cards. And I'm going to force the win on the side game here, knowing my opponent is poor. They can't bid on the side game, so I bid 1. This allows me to draw another 2 cards to go up to 4 cards, which allows me to steal Obo Carters. I hit a snare, but my opponent can't trigger it. And then I steal the Obo Carter here. Of course, I had to think about it first, because I could be in a whole lot of trouble. But knowing my opponent only has 0 credits, they can't threaten double Neuro EMP, so I'm safe. This is a free 3 points for me, and it's punishment for my opponent going so aggressively on the scores. They were too poor to defend their R&D properly with snares and double neuros. So I safely got the Obo Carter here. Not a very big loss in terms of 4 net damage. The real loss came with the Arc Lockdown on my first levy. One of the levies was milled into my bin thanks to PU's ability. So I had to... I'm now going to play the rest of the game with no more levies available. Basically, I had 3 passes through my deck. Arc Lockdown reduced that number to 2. I only have 2 passes remaining, and I need to find enough agendas to win before I deck out. Let's see if we can manage to do it. So the key here is to get as many Maker's Eyes in as possible. I can't stop my opponent from 1-poing the agendas, and honestly, HQ is really not a good target to hit right now. I could try to go for the guessing game on the remote, but it looks very unlikely that my opponent will jam any more agendas in the remote, given that most of their never advanceable agendas are already in their score area. So instead, R&D looks the juiciest. As long as I pummel it with all my Maker's Eyes that I've got, I should be good. I'm going to break with Ike and let Ike draw me cards once again to buffer myself against the double House of Knives. Let's see what we access here. Obo Carter off the top. That steals it. 6 agenda points and a couple of blanks. Very good. 1 more agenda is all I need to win the game. I drop to safety. Pass the turnover. Not gonna get flatline here. Unfortunately, a value neuro takes out down 2 hit points from me. I'm down to 10 hit points left in stack, 4 hit points in hand. Can I find the last agenda? I sure can. This shouldn't be too hard as long as I don't frivolously play cards from my hand. Speaking of frivolously playing cards, I noticed that in my bin, the dagger got hit. I was milled, probably from one of the House of Night triggers. I lost my dagger and thus my ability to break any and all sentries. But thinking back to the Hot Potatoes list piloted by Dan at Worlds. What sentries does it run? Cortex Lock. And I can get past Cortex Lock as long as I'm full on memory. Hence the misdirection install. I needed to hog up one memory unit so that I can run through Cortex Locks with impunity. I continue my quest for efficiency here, playing build script just so that I can trigger Comet into Maker's Eye. Probably a mistake. I probably want to keep that build script as hit points. In any case, I waltz through the outer Cortex Lock. Break the Aiki. This time onwards, I'm gonna break every subroutine on the Aiki. I do not want my opponent to deliberately lose the side game so as to force me to draw cards. That would be pretty bad. I don't want to mill myself out. So I'm gonna access 3 cards here. Maker's Eye turns a blank. Now counting the number of Maker's Eyes in my bin, I realize I'm out of Maker's Eyes as well. Oh no, I'm gonna have to win on single access. This is gonna come down to the wire. I hope there are enough agendas left in the deck for me to win. If there have been one pulling enough agendas back into the deck, I could be in trouble. But my opponent lends me a hand here using preemptive action, which makes the one pulled agendas live. They have been shuffled and they can now be back at the top. I ran and see a Hokusai Grid. Not gonna let you have any of that. That goes straight in the bin. I was debating whether to run R&D again to fetch another agenda. Decided to pass. Might have been a mistake. I don't know. The main reason there was that I didn't want to hit a snare there. Hitting a snare is obviously can happen on any R&D run, but you really don't want to hit it when you are on very few clicks remaining. There's always more chances to run R&D, such as now. Now my opponent smartly hovers in the 10 to 14 credit range, forcing me to draw a card with Beth. I'm running out of stack here. So to compensate for that, I'm going to first play a card from my hand, a Cloak. This should give me enough economy to run R&D for the rest of the game, draw my remaining cards so that it won't be milled with potatoes, and then run R&D here to see what I can see off the top. Will it be an agenda? Will it be Kakugo? Crap. Not the card I wanted to see. I had to play one of the events from my hand because I was going to discard it anyway at the end of turn. I'm now suddenly down to 5 hit points. With a Kakugo on top of R&D, my time is limited. Well, I have no other outs. Just gonna keep running R&D until I either win or lose. Now, what if I did not run? What if I just stopped running for the rest of the game and just click for credits? Who would have won? It's a very interesting question. In a tournament setting, not running for the rest of the game would have been the best play to make. My opponent would have needed too many clicks to assemble a scoring combo, which is basically remote Kakugo into Hokusai Grid into Obokata. That requires me to pay 6 net damage and I only have 5 cards in hand. Again, this requires too many clicks from my, turns from my opponent rather, so I can win on time. Instead, since this is a Jinteki.net game, I'm just gonna Hail Mary on R&D until I either flatline myself or I find the winning agenda. Let's play proactively and see what happens. Thanks to a well-timed Hokusai on R&D, I was forced down to 2 hit points remaining. I'm searching for the winning agenda. Any 1-point agenda, any Philotic would have done it for me. I'm running R&D, gonna break the Kakugo. Take a net damage, I'm down to 1 last hit point. I have 2 runs remaining in me. This has to be agenda. It is Komainu. Well, that's game, isn't it? It sure is. As they place the Komainu on R&D, I find myself unable to break it, meaning I can't even make the final run on R&D that I wanted to. With R&D locked and a clean HQ thanks to Wampoa, it's time to hit the concede button. I was well and truly imprisoned. And of course, it seems like a natural knee-jerk reaction to blame the Arc Lockdown for consuming one of my 2 levies. But if you think about it, if I couldn't win the game in 2 passes of my deck against a mill-based deck, that I saw coming, I probably deserved it anyway. There were so many misplays I made throughout the game, and I'm sure you spotted a lot of them, but I'll go through them quickly. Both of the Never Advanced House of Knives really should have been checked. I just did not, and I paid the ultimate price. It was very trivial for me to check them, especially the first one, which was Place Out There Naked. That would have just won me the game. All I needed was one more point. I used too many draw cards on the second pass just to get COMET efficiency, really tunnel visioning myself into my own deck, when in fact what you really should be doing is clicking to draw. There was no need for me to get super efficiency because I had all the clicks in the world. I just needed the cards. Same thing with Beth. Who needs Beth efficiency? Ultimately, Beth was my demise when I was forced to draw my remaining cards towards the end of the game. I was forced to play events from my hand that should have been hit points, and yeah, Beth basically decked me out, and my opponent perfectly exploited the fact that I installed her. What else? Well, setting up my rig was a complete utter disaster. I can blame my draw order till the cows come home, but really when you look at it, I superfluously installed an SMC that I later overrode with Refractor. Then later on, when I had chances to install Dagger, I chose not to, and instead, my Dagger ended up getting smashed by flying potatoes, and I was forced to misdirect, losing yet another hit point from my hand just to get past Cortex Lock. Mistakes abound, all of them which could have contributed to me stealing the Obo Carter when you saw it towards the end of the game. I only had 2 cards in hand when I accessed the final Obo Carter from my opponent's deck. All these small little misplays add up. I would definitely have at least 4 cards remaining in hand had I played the game more properly. So there you go. Mistakes that punish me for poor play. Don't look at your tech cards. Don't blame the arc lockdown. At the end of the day, there's a lot more you can do to improve your play. And I think this is why PU did really well at Worlds, because clearly a lot of people have no idea how to control their deck from going into the bin. So if there's anything we've learned from this failed rocket launch, is that we should be spending our credits not on building Levy research labs, but to instead research on Glazebrook's finest potatoes. Thanks for watching Happy Net Running. I'll see you next time at the House of Potatoes.